All righty. Thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Waleisah Wilson. I am the founder of NewLife-Second Chance Outreach. This is our last event that we are having for Reentry Awareness Month. This is our 7th annual Reentry Awareness Month observation. 7 years ago, I felt the need that Georgia needed to recognize Reentry Awareness Month, not just for a day or a week, but I don't think Georgia actually recognized Reentry Awareness Month. Of course, there was a national one in April, but Georgia did not do its own. And so I went before the governor to request that we do it for the entire month. And this is our 7th year getting our proclamation approved for that. And it's to highlight not just the challenges to reentry, but also to let it be known in Georgia that just as impacted people actually contribute a lot to the state of Georgia. And we wanted to highlight and celebrate those of us who have been just as impacted and formerly incarcerated like myself. I started NewLife-Second Chance Outreach in 2012 when I got out of prison to support other folks who was in the same situation, who was having challenges with with trying to access resources. Today is our 3rd annual Broken Crayon Still Color event since post-COVID. We used to have this in person, but it's still just the same, where we take individuals and have them come on and talk to us about their inspiring stories. Oftentimes we feel that whether it's addiction or domestic violence or incarceration or poverty or whatever it is that we're dealing with, that we can't still be used and that we still can't be positive contributions to our community. And that's an outright lie. And so we use this as one of our events to let people know that there is light on the other side of darkness, and that there may be storms, but I've never seen a storm where there's not a rainbow that always ends up as a result. And so this is one of the ways, and we always intentionally make this the last event of Reentry Awareness Month. We come in with something really fun and good where we're fellowshipping in person or some type of fellowship, and we go out on an inspirational note. And so today we have 5 amazing women with us who are business owners, who are bosses, who are attorneys, who are really navigating nonprofit spaces, national leaders, who just happen to be just as impacted and formerly incarcerated, because that is not what they're led with. And so I will introduce them all briefly. So I'd like to welcome you all for joining us. And then I am going to introduce you to our panelists. All righty, let's see here. But again, like I said, my name is Waleisah Wilson. I'm the founder. I myself had a lot of challenges with looking for employment and ended up turning into entrepreneurship myself. I have a t-shirt business. I also help individuals start their own nonprofits and their businesses. And I work as a representative with Legal Shield, helping individuals get 24/7 legal representative for less than $30 a month. So I'll drop my information in the chat, and then we will start with our bios. I want to tell you first about the mission of NewLife-Second Chance. Our mission is to equip, empower, and restore socially, economically, and civically disadvantaged individuals with impacted by an arrest, conviction, or incarceration. We are committed to providing workforce development, job readiness, entrepreneurship, voter education, and related resources and opportunities that lead to self-sufficiency and successful participation and reintegration into society. You can learn more of us at our website, and I just dropped that information in the chat as well. Today, we have with us Chalana McFarland, Tiffany Francis, affectionately known as Coach Tip. We have Linnell Laws, we have Tanika Nicholas, and we have Shakithia Wheeler, affectionately known as Kiki. So we'll start with Chalana Farland. Chalana, make sure you raise your hand, Shay. Affectionately known as Shay, is current board director of our great organization. She is a 2021 Presidential Executive Clemency recipient. She was freed after serving 17 years in federal custody as a first-time offender. Prior to her incarceration, she practiced law in Atlanta, Georgia. After graduating from John Marshall Law School, she is an honor graduate of Florida A&M University, where she earned a BS in journalism. Since her release, Shay is a vocal advocate for criminal justice and prison reform. She is a sought-after keynote speaker and is the author of the upcoming book, Collateral Consequences. She currently volunteers as a project manager for Can Do Clemency, co-chairs a legislative reform cohort, and served as the administrative in-reach coordinator for Ladies of Hope Ministries. She has been an organizer for the Women of Color Initiative, Georgia statewide, Pro-Georgia Survey Project. Additionally, she serves on the advisory boards of Fighting for Freedom, the Atlanta Incarcerated Art Project, and Atlanta Women on the Rise. She also served as a faculty member for the 2021 National Association of Criminal Defense Attorneys 20th Annual State Criminal Justice Network Conference. Shay is a featured contributor to the column Clemency Corner for the West Side Gazette out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. She is also tasked with serving on the Commutation and Pardons Work Group for the Justice Roundtable, Forever Families Ad Hoc Work Group, and Prison to PhD Mentor. Shay has appeared on NPR, StoryCorps, PBS NewsHour, A Neighbor's Choice, and The Roach Brown Show on Sirius and iHeartRadio. She and her story has been featured in web stories curated by the ACLU and Vera Institute sites. She is the proud mother of a college graduate student and currently resides in Atlanta, Georgia metro area. Welcome, Shay. Welcome, 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 and thank you for joining us today. Our next, and before we go on, because I had to catch myself, I normally try to do this before in these spaces, as I had to get used to it, and we're asking everybody else to get used to it. We do not refer to ourselves as offenders, as felons, convicts, cons, and all these other negative terms. We are people, and that is what we should be referred to as. I prefer myself to be called a formerly incarcerated woman, or a woman who is formerly incarcerated. But in this space, I know sometimes it's hard for us to not refer to ourselves, but we are firm believers at NewLife-Second Chance Outreach that words have power. Just as if you call a child stupid long enough that they believe that they're stupid, if a person is constantly being led by being what their charge was or what their past was, they stay in that space. So in this space, we are women, we are bosses, we are entrepreneurs, we are inspiration, truth seekers, we are light givers. So these are the terms that we will be using, and we ask that you all use those terms going forth as well. And we will go to our next person, which is Tanika Nicholas. Wave your hand, Nikki. Affectionately known as Nikki, who is also my co-worker at the Southern Center for Human Rights. She joined the Southern Center for Human Rights as the Justice Reform Partnership Strategist in April of 2022. As a formerly incarcerated woman, Nikki strives to be the catalyst for change to overcome the stigmas and stereotypes associated with formerly incarcerated people. After serving over 10 years in prison, she observed firsthand the many shortcomings of the criminal, legal, and correctional systems. She seeks to transform these systems by using her lived experience as a link to reshape public policy reform. Nikki has over 20 years of experience working with the nonprofit sector, serving and empowering marginalized groups. Within the correctional system, she supported and assisted administrative staff in developing and implementing programs to increase reentry success for the formerly incarcerated. She is a member of Women on the Rise, a grassroots organization that focuses on supporting, educating, and healing formerly incarcerated women. She is also a fellow in the Ladies of Hope Ministries, Pathways for Equity Career Fellowship Program, designed to engage, empower, and elevate women to the next level of their career pathway. Tanika is a graduate of Grambling State University, where she obtained her BA in psychology, and Troy University, where she obtained a Master's of Education with a concentration in counseling. She currently resides in her hometown of LaGrange, Georgia, where she enjoys sitting on the front porch with her granddaddy, appreciating the simplicity of life. Welcome, Nikki. Thank you so much, Nikki, for joining us. And I dropped your information in the chat as well. Next, we have Shakithia Wheeler, affectionately known as Kiki. We got a lot of affectionately known. She is the founding president and executive director of Southern Women in Motion Foundation Incorporated, or S.W.I.M, a nonprofit organization that provides housing and reentry services to formerly incarcerated women. She is a native of Atlanta, Georgia. Her professional background is in accounting, business management, and real estate. Ms. Wheeler is a mother of 4 children. She is a directly impacted Black woman who's dedicated to leading her organization into the criminal justice reform movement. Tell everybody, hey, Kiki, I'll be dropping your information in the chat now. All right, next we have Ms. Linnell Laws. Linnell is a licensed marriage and family therapist residing in Los Angeles, California. She is employed by the AMAAD Institute, which is Arming Minorities Against Addiction and Disease, as a behavioral health therapist, where she collaborates with the Watts Labor Community Action Committee on the Project Impact program to help eliminate recidivism within the community. As a single mother of 2, formerly incarcerated woman of color, and a victim of abuse, Linnell has overcome many adversities of her own. Because of her lived experience, she has been able to meet her clients where they are while helping them change the way they navigate through life. She prides herself with being an ally and strives to bridge the gap between people of color and the LGBTQIA community. Linnell is trained in trauma-focused cognitive therapy, applied suicide intervention skills, training, effective practices, and community support, while utilizing client-centered approaches. She is an expert at being trauma-informed and implementing harm reduction. Linnell started Change Your Narrative, LLC, and Heal Thyself Wellness to teach individuals how important it is to eliminate biases, educate on mental wellness, and accept people for who they are. She is known for saying, "This isn't just my passion, this is my purpose." Linnell, if you have a website, can you drop that in the chat along with your email as well? Thank you. Next, we have Tiffany Francis, affectionately known as Coach Tip. Ms. Tiffany Francis is the humble founder and CEO of Career Values Coaching and Consulting Firm. She's also the proud co-owner and marketing director of Flex Plates Meal Prep and Catering Company, which she operates alongside her husband and best friend, Chef Tyrone. Coach Tip has extensive background as an educator, career counselor, holistic healer, public speaker, motivation coach, entrepreneur trainer, and event planner. She's passionate about assisting justice-impacted individuals with positive mindset training, confidence building, and professional development skills that lead to self-sufficiency. Coach Tip's quote is, "Please understand perfection is often unattainable. Strive for being present in the moment while giving yourself grace to grow and learn from your mistakes." I like that. Thank you so much for joining us, Coach Tip and all the other ladies. And I will drop your information as well. I don't know what happened to this. Coach Tip, if you don't mind, can you drop your email, your website information in the chat? Thank you all. So we're going to go ahead and get started while Linnell and Coach Tip is dropping their information. And we're going to go sort of do like a round robin on these questions. I'll ask a question and then we will, each guest will have 3 to 5 minutes to answer the question. And then we will go around to the next question. So we'll have probably about 4 or 5 questions we'll be able to get through so we can get some Q&A or just have some engagement time with the attendees who have joined. All righty, so we will start with Shay, and we'll start with all the ladies with the same question. Can you give us a brief summary of your journey from incarceration to success?
Well, I'm on the road And I don't exactly see the end of it yet, but I'm marching along at a good rate. Some days I may end up in the ditch, but I end up getting back on the road. So my story is a little bit different in that I have come from a legal background, in that I was an attorney before my incarceration. I was named in a federal indictment, and I chose to exercise my constitutional right to a trial. And I was convicted at trial, and the judge sentenced me to 30 years in federal prison. And at that time, I was married, and my daughter had just turned 4 years old. And so I just could not understand, you know, the fact that she would be 34 years old by the time I came home. And when you're faced with those type of hurdles, me having always been brought up in the church, I turned to my faith. And I'm like, okay, God, you're gonna have to walk this with me, because I don't have the strength to do it on my own. And off I went to federal prison. I was at numerous city and county jails, holding facilities, and 6 federal institutions during my time. I was fortunate enough to be released on an ankle monitor due to health conditions during COVID. And while I was home, I received my executive clemency from President Trump, and that ended my journey. However, it only put me on the road to be able to try to free as many other women and men as possible, because of the egregious things that I saw when I was on the inside. I now know that God needed me to see it in order to believe what was going on, because even though I worked in the legal industry, I had no idea what happened to my clients once they went to jail. I just never thought about it. And I was naive, like much of America. And it's a waste of taxpayers' dollars. It breaks up families. It causes emotional, mental, and physical damage that is often irreparable. And it was just something that I needed to do. And so now I'm on the road. I am dedicated to trying to work in policy and legislation to make laws that make sense, that allow people to be held accountable, but not overly burdened with these life sentences that they end up serving due to fines and restitution and probation and all the other tricks that they use to try to keep the pipeline going, so that you're going right back in again. It is an industry that is modern day slavery. And I am dedicated to doing everything I can to upset the apple cart, throw some apples, and point to everybody where the orchard is, so people can't hide behind it anymore. And so that is the beginning of my journey, and I'm well on the road and speeding along.
Well, thank you so much for that, Shay. And I mean, it's truly inspirational. You know, a lot of people serve time, they get out and they give up. And I know you, Shannon says sound just like her, but I know you, with just seeing your tenacity, your expertise, it really has inspired me with some of the work that I've done. So I appreciate you. I love the work that you do, and I'm here to support you 100%. So the same question for Coach Tip. Can you give us about 3 to 5 minutes of just your journey of your justice involvement to success? Doesn't have to be anything in detail, just kind of whatever it is that you want to, that'll inspire us and give us some nuggets.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Waleisah. First and foremost, I just want to say how humbled I am to be here along this wonderful panel. So Shay and Linnell, Tanika, Kiki, it is just an absolute honor. And I appreciate you holding the space for us, Waleisah. So a little bit about my justice impacted background. I have to go back a little further to the incident, but I promise I won't bore you all. So I was raised by a single mom off a Walmart salary, and I have a younger brother. We experienced an extreme amount of poverty. So everything you could possibly think of: childhood trauma, inadequate living, just situation, the environment, everything was just pretty deplorable with my upbringing. So with the experience and all of that adversity, quite naturally, life came very quickly. And as a result of that, I was also sexually assaulted. So I am a survivor of sexual assault. The incident happened in 2001. And it was a blessing in disguise because I gave birth to my beautiful daughter in March of 2002. And she is now a senior at Georgia Southern, and she's 21 years old. So with that being said, raising a child, being a child yourself, there's so many different things that you're going to have to go through. So quite naturally, I made some very not so thought out decisions in my youth and as a young adult. And I was incarcerated at the age of 19, briefly. Was in about 24 hours. And then I tried to get on that road to recovery, that road to redemption. And again, you know, life just caught up with me at the age of 24, and I was incarcerated again. And it was definitely an experience that was life altering. It certainly just changed my mindset. At the time, it changed it for the worse because I just had this inferior complex that society doesn't care. I'm just out here by myself. So it's a lot of different things that I battled. And that charge, it did stem from unemployment compensation. And at that time, it was 2008, it was a recession. I had known so many people who had claimed unemployment, yet alone I was being used as a poster child example in the state of Florida. And the judge definitely threw the book at me. I was incarcerated for 33 days, and it was, again, a very humbling experience. And it just forced me to look at life differently. As Shay had mentioned, once you're on the other side, you have a newfound respect, and you really, truly value and appreciate life because it is so small, it is so fragile. So going through all of that, I will say the success, I'm currently still on that road to success. After marrying my husband in 2011, I did go back to school and I obtained my associate's degree in paralegal studies just to learn a little bit more about the legal. I want to step further and receive my bachelor's in criminal justice. And then I decided that I really have a servant's heart. So my passion was to give back in ways through clinical care and just making sure that I was a volunteer and also an educator in that space. So I did end up working with Wellspring Living, which has a huge footprint in Metro Atlanta for ending human sex trafficking. So that work is, of course, very near and dear to my heart, being a survivor myself. And now currently, I am a career coaching consultant. I did do a shout out a little earlier. Some of my students and clients are also on this call. So I'm glad to see them here. And I hope that they continue to just move forward and keep themselves motivated. And that's a little bit about my success.
Well, thank you so much, Coach Tip. I really appreciate you. And I think when we connected last month, it was just like a kindred thought. I mean, it was just like that automatic connection. So I really I love your tenacity and your overcoming spirit, and realizing not just then we have some other things in common that we've shared with some of the abusive stuff that we've gone through. So it's always good to see folks who have come out to say, you know, this has happened to me, but that is not me. And that's not why the space that I'm gonna stay in. So I love that. Thank you so very much for that. And the same question to you, Miss Linnell.
Hello, everyone. And I want to echo Coach Tip. I think this is amazing to just have this space and be able to be authentically us and share our stories with no judgments. So thank you, Waleisah, for doing this. So for me, I heard a little bit of my story in both Shay and Coach Tip's story. Mine started from a young age. Both of my parents are currently still in their addiction and have been for years. And that led me to be in situations and environments that were not stable. So with that, I felt like I needed to grow up fast. I needed to make sure that I had everything I needed. And being a young teen mom, that turned into meaning I needed fast money and I needed to get it how I seen everybody else getting it. So a lot of my crimes were white collar crimes. And they caught up with me because I had several times that I went to jail And the final time when I got my final charges, I was looking at 3 years in prison. I ended up, because I was very good in school. I would like to say I was so smart, I was dumb. Sometimes that saying. So I was able to talk that time down, and I served all of my time in the county jail. While I was there, I worked and did what I needed to do, but it also opened my eyes to the environment, as both of the ladies before me shared. I looked at it like there were people in there that needed food, and they didn't have anything to eat when they were on the streets, and I did. And there were people that needed shelter and a bed. And I had those things and they didn't. And they were there because they needed those things. They needed support. And I felt ashamed. And so I told myself that last time, when I get out, I'm going to do something to change this. But I also told myself I needed help. So I started to go to school to be a therapist. But if you don't know, they make you go to therapy to be a therapist. So I had to do therapy while I was going to be a therapist. And it really helped me. It opened my eyes to so many things, all of my generational trauma, all of the trauma that came from, me seeing my mom be abused and then me going into those relationships as well. And not seeing anything wrong with it, not even being able to get out of it. So, Waleisah knows this, but I've shared that I really didn't start on my journey until I turned 40. I'm about to be 45. So that means I've just started on my journey. And the last time I seen the inside of a jail cell was 2008. So it's been a journey. It's been a struggle. I had to fight with the courts to become licensed, and still today, I'm still fighting when I work with insurance panels. I always have to make sure that I'm answering to certain things, but I show up every day. So as Shay said, I'm still on my journey. I don't even know where I'm going to end, but I do see a light. I don't know what that light is going to look like, but I see it. But every day that I'm working on me, I tell people, I'm also, while I'm working on them, I'm working on myself, and I'm not your average therapist, so I make sure I carry that title with pride, because I make sure that everybody knows I'm not the average therapist that you see every day on TV or you hear about. I'm somebody that comes with a lot of different layers. And that's why I'm able to relate to my clients. So that's a little bit about me.
Yes, well, thank you. And I ain't ashamed to say it, Linnell is my therapist, and she is an amazing therapist. And let me tell you something, when it comes to the point of trying to find people who relate to you and meet you where you are, I've had plenty of therapists, because of course, like everybody else, I grew up in foster care. Mom was an addiction. I've dealt with domestic violence relationship, molested, I've been raped. All of this trauma I've gone through, and not one time have I dealt with a therapist that was in foster care, that dealt with having a parent that was in addiction, that had dealt with anything. So as a post-release coming out of my incarceration, when I tell you there's nothing like having people who know exactly where you have been. Now, every time I turn around, when I go to school, I want my life coach to be a formerly incarcerated person. I want my therapist to be a formerly incarcerated person. I'm looking for a new doctor, and I want them to be a formerly incarcerated person. It's just something about people who you can relate with, whether it's on a cultural level, whether it's on the same gender level, whatever it is. And she is amazing. And so I just want to say, thank you so much, Linnell, for joining us and sharing just a little bit of yourself with us and telling us a little bit about your journey. So I think we have next is Nikki. She's next on my screen.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Waleisah, for this opportunity. And such as the other guests have stated, having this platform to be able to share is unique. Waleisah and I do work together, and I guess I'll get into that when we go into the next round of questions. But when you work in a space, and we all know that when you're always trying to go get the man, fight the man, and you don't really get a chance to talk about yourself and your journey and just to breathe. So to be in a space, a safe space, with you all, and just to say, okay, you know, I thought about it when Waleisah asked me, and I said, well, have I ever thought about my journey? And I started to think about, you know, the metaphor about the broken crayon, and when was I whole, you know? And for me, I thought about when my mom married my stepdad. When I was 4, I grew up as a military brat. And I thought about it. I said, man, I wish she should have married him when I was 3, because my crayon broke when I was 4. So that's when that first little piece broke off. You know, when you have a crayon and that tip is sharp, right? When you color a little hard and that tip fall off. Well, at 4, that's when my first little piece fell off. So, and I thought about that, and, you know, throughout my journey, my crayon has been kind of carved away, chipped away, and it stopped when I stepped out of Lee Arundel State Transitional Center in April of 2021. So that's when that crayon stopped chipping away. But I want to pivot a little bit about my journey, just to say that I shouldn't be here. I should still be at Lee Arundel State Transitional Center. I should be at work right now at that little warehouse. I worked a night job, right? So I should be right now still doing that night job, because actually I was denied parole. And by the grace of God, and having family who cared about me and said no and fought for my release, 72 hours, I was reconsidered and was granted parole. So I don't take my parole lightly. I don't take my purpose lightly in what I'm doing. And I figured that out probably about halfway through my 10-year sentence. It wasn't about me. I came in, like a lot of the ladies that are on the panel, speaking as professionals or had a career or had something going. So I saw a lot of things. And when we talk about stories of hope and inspiration, there are so many. So I am humbled to just be a part of this, because I've seen and heard a lot more, far more than what, you know, I've gone through. And people say, Nikki, don't minimize your stuff, but I guess that's something I'm still working on, and maybe Linnell can help me with that. But I try not to focus on myself and focus on others, but I know I need to change that too. But so I don't take this work lightly in what I'm doing. So the journey continues, because when you are denied, and I keep that letter and I bring it out, and when someone says, no, you know, you're being denied, and I don't know how many of you all know how it goes in Georgia. You know, when you don't go beyond a parole board, they vote, and when you get to that third no, they just stop. So you don't speak to anyone. So to have that privilege, to have a chairman to email your family to say we're going to reconsider her is very rare. So I knew then it was something bigger than me. And so I don't take that lightly. So I think that, you know, when we talk about broken crayons, you know, the piece I have, you know, I'm gonna use it until I can't use it anymore. And continue coloring until, you know, whatever happens. So I just kind of wanted to just frame it on that, because I know that that's, you know, the metaphor, and that's the theme of what we're talking about, finding our value and our worth in what we're doing. And so I kind of wanted to share that a little bit, and hopefully get a little bit more into that in the next round.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that, Nikki. And you are like my sister. I know you get on my nerves and I get on your nerve, but I knew if I had to have you on this panel. So I appreciate you for taking the time out to join us. And then of course we got Kiki. We hadn't heard from Kiki, have we?
No, Kiki.
Hello. I have to figure out how to work this thing. Thank you, Waleisah, for inviting S.W.I.M into this space. It's very important, especially you know, because of what I'm trying to do as far as with my organization, which is new. So second chance awareness is very important. I've learned a lot from you and Nikki. A lot of this stuff I wouldn't be able to do without the both of you. But as far as my journey, I have no clue where it's gonna lead because this is a lot. But actually, basically, I mean, I'm really enjoying it. But my journey really began after I was sentenced. You know, I was sentenced, and eventually my victim passed away. My charges was, up to murder. So I was being given a life sentence, not knowing if I would ever see another day of light on the other side. And just the fact of walking down that little corridor back to my holding cell, that's when the journey really began. Didn't know what I was facing. And all the way back to my holding cell, I was just kind of questioning God, wanting to know what in the world just happened. What just happened? I had my business trying to do everything the right way, and just could not understand why these walls was closing in on me. Life was moving really, really fast. I thought I had it all figured out. And then I came to the conclusion that there's a purpose for this pain. So my job is to figure out what the purpose is, because I know I don't get in trouble. I don't bother anybody. I'm always trying to help people, and really me helping someone backfired on me. And, that's why I was in the situation to begin with, helping people, bringing people into my home, trying to get people off the streets. So that right there started the journey. Once I was incarcerated, because of my background, I was able to land a good detail, which I was a teacher's aide. So being a teacher's aide, I was able to work with the ladies and talk to them one-on-one directly and hear their stories. After speaking with them, and another thing is I was kind of bitter because it was bothering me. Women, here I am with a life sentence, not knowing if I would ever be able to see my kids other than in visitation or either in the children's center. And these women are coming in and out of prison, in and out. And that was very disrespectful to a lifer. I felt like they're really disrespecting lifers, So at that time, I didn't understand why they were coming in and out, So as I, start talking with them and just, asking certain questions, the real reason was they didn't have anywhere to go. When they are released, they have nowhere to go. So housing was an issue. Reentry was an issue. So at that point, I knew that even though I was fighting for my case, didn't know if I was going to win, because when you fighting, somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. So didn't know what end I was going to end up on, but I still kept the faith. And I wrote my business plan in prison with the help of Miss Nikki. Thank you, Nikki, for everything, because she had that background with nonprofit. So she helped me out a lot to understand the nonprofit aspect. I was a businesswoman, had been for over 10 years, but it was for profit, and nonprofit is totally different. So I learned about nonprofit in prison. So that's when my baby was birthed. S.W.I.M was birthed in Pulaski State Prison. And so that's where I figured out, I didn't understand why I was there at first, but then I said, I have to actually be here to see what's going on, what's going on with the justice system, the reform process. You have to actually be in a situation to be able to understand the situation. So I said in, God, okay, I got you. I see why I'm here, but I promise you, if you let me out, I'm going to do your work. And that's what I've been doing since I've been home. And I've been home since I came home Thanksgiving 2018. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, because you sure been doing it. And I love when you say there is purpose in our pain. Because I think a lot of time we ask ourselves why, but there are some things it's not for us to know. I mean, that's in the word. There are some things you're not supposed to know. But just know that failure is not final, and darkness doesn't always stay darkness. So there's definitely some purpose in our pain. So I thank you all for sharing that. Well, we're gonna go to the next question, and I think we're gonna go down to what was your biggest post-release reentry challenge? So once you got out, what was the biggest challenge that you found? So we'll go backwards. So we're gonna start with Kiki this time.
My post-release challenges, I didn't have an issue with somewhere to stay because I have a lot of family support. My mom, my parents, both of my parents had more than enough support. So I had somewhere to stay. That wasn't my biggest challenge, although it was a lot of people's challenge. Mine was the, I guess it would be collateral consequences, getting out, having to start paying for a ankle monitor immediately. I mean, to even leave Fulton County Jail, a payment had to be made. That was the stipulation because my case was overturned. And, even though I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, born at Grady, I'm a flight risk. That's just any excuse to put me on the ankle monitor. And I have a monthly bill straight out of prison, $300 a month. You don't know where I'm going to get it from. It's just basically a setup. So post-release challenges is pretty much getting out with financial responsibility. My anxiety was a mess. The trauma from being locked up in a maximum security prison, living with God knows whom, and just having to deal with other people's trauma will kind of bleed on you. So the anxiety was a lot. A lot of people that gets out, they parole, and the extent of time is just ridiculous. That people have to be still on documented on paperwork, reporting, paying. It just seems like it never stops.
Yeah,
So
I can definitely relate to that. That was a big challenge as well. I mean, how do you expect? I think when I got out, I actually got out June 11th, June 19, 2011, which was a Thursday, I think, and I had to report on Monday with $250. And so I said, well, I just got out. I don't have a job anymore. I don't have a house anymore. I don't even got my kids anymore. So how do you expect me to come up with this money? And sure enough, when I walked in, she said, well, I'm going to give you a week. And if you don't come up with it, I'm sending you back to jail. So then the question is, you want us to get the money, but you don't want us to commit a crime to get the money.
Right.
So it makes it seem like really rehabilitation or the whole system is not even about you being rehabilitated or about you helping get what you need. It's about them getting money, which is a whole nother issue, and which I see a lot of formerly incarcerated people now actually advocating on it, because prison is the punishment. Once you've gone to prison, when you get out, there should be no probation. There should not be any parole. There definitely should not be any probation fines and fees and all of this stuff. If you got restitution, that's one thing, but these court fines and these things, and people don't understand, that is the motivation of why to actually keep people unemployed, because the goal is that you're gonna fail so you can go back to prison and support that business, but I'm glad all of us overcame that. So definitely related with me. Nikki, what was your biggest reentry challenge?
I think,
Post-release.
Waleisha, my biggest reentry challenge was navigating around employment. It was funny for 10 years. And I talked to you before about the same jobs I did in prison for 10 years working for the state. I couldn't get out and get those same jobs. I taught GD math for years. GED instruction work, couldn't get a GED instructor job. I put in for a job. I remember this one job with Goodwill Industries. This was for a job coach. And ironically, the job coach job was to give skills for individuals who were re-entering society, right? I went through 3 interviews. After maybe the 3rd interview, I figured it out. They were using me for information. They were not going to hire me. They wanted to get information from me so they can utilize it for, the next person. And I've seen the recruiter several times since then. And this individual, I don't even think she can even look me in the eye, now. And she's like, they just passed up on an opportunity. But it's unfortunate that, and I asked, I said, well, how is it that I can't get a job doing the same work that for the population that you're going to be serving? I don't understand. And they didn't have an answer to that. Or, even doing night classes for adult GED, all the teaching, and Kiki can attest to this, of what we did. And it's hard to get folks to go to class in prison. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Get them to come sit in a classroom. Oh my gosh. And then the ones who were, you have to teach them paper and pencil because they don't want to use a calculator. So you got to have some skill set to be able to work with all types of populations and meet people where they're at, whether they're 18 to 80. So you've got to be able to maneuver around that. So, but again, none of that mattered. So employment was a big barrier. And, fortunate for me, how I got a job and how I got the job today is because a friend who I served time with, 9 years at Pulaski State Prison. And I give flowers where they need to be. I give shout outs. And when Robin got out and got her job with Women on the Rise and gave me a referral, that's how I have my job. When we say, we were intentional when we worked together and said that when we got out, we wanted to make a difference. We wanted to give back. And that's what we have to continually do. We have to continually help and give back to each other. So that's how I have the job I have today. And I can't front, I can't lie. I got that email and say, hey, I have someone who has this qualification. And then now I got my job on my own merit. I felt like I was in front of Congress because I had to go through 3 rounds in front of all these attorneys. I'm like, okay, what is this? This, Waleisah knows. Waleisah, did you have to go through 3 rounds of interviews too? Woo. Okay, so yes, it was a lot.
I did.
So it was a lot. So just know, but to get that opportunity, and not everybody has that, and so the work we do now, we have to try to change that because not everybody knows somebody, not everybody has that, so it shouldn't have to be that way. Yeah. So for mine was navigating around not just a serviceable job, but a job that was skill set, so that's what I'm talking about. That was a big deal. Now I cleaned houses. I did what I had to do because I had to make money. So, I worked in Columbus. I drove in Phoenix City. I did what I had to do to have a job. And wasn't a job that was beneath me because I did every job I had to do in prison. So I could come out and clean a house when I get home. So that's for sure. But I knew what my goal was and I knew what my purpose was going to be. So, I'm where I need to be, but I'm not where my end goal is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And employment was a big challenge with me as well, because I had a master's degree in prison. I had worked on my doctorate before I went to prison. And I couldn't get a job at a McDonald's because I had a felony. So at some point I did lead the cooking and did what I needed to do. Of course, I didn't want to cook at Denny's, but it was no beneath me because if that would have took for me to pay them folks that money to keep me out of jail, that's what I was going to do. And so but it was a challenge. And I think for a long time, when you get out, which this actually needs to change, when we get out, society sees our felonies or our time behind bars as liabilities, when in fact they're assets. When in fact, when you have recovery treatment centers, they're not going to have you in there if you're not a person that's actually in recovery. Now, you're not going to have people who say, working in youth facility centers that are targeted on certain things if you haven't had that lived experience. And it's time society got up on it. So when I got this job where I'm with you at Southern Center, I was shocked because my felony was no longer seen as a liability, it was actually seen as an asset. Because I had more than one person that called me and say, we want you particularly for this job. And, you know, had I not been formally incarcerated, probably didn't pay in my favor. So it actually worked, you know, in my favor in that time. And that's why I said sometimes, you know, for me, jail was a good thing for me because I was in a bad relationship. He probably would have ended up killing me. So it was a positive thing for me. And so that really let me realize at that point that, wait a minute, I've been putting myself down all this time thinking because I got a felony, I can't. When in fact, somebody actually sought me out because I had a felony. Somebody sought me out because of the experience I had. So those are just some of the things that we work here at New Life, we're always getting people talking about employment. I say a lot of times it's not because you got a felony. Now, a large majority is because you got felonies, and that needs to change. But because we should not be seen as, oh, we can't find nobody, let's start hiring people with felonies. No, we're not last resort people. To be honest with you, you need to get some people with a felony on your team because you might can get some more business up in there. You might can get a little something going. But to also think about it, maybe you're looking in the wrong places. You need to seek out people who want you on their team. So if you're trying to go here and you're trying to get in this school and they won't get you, go to a school that doesn't have a problem with second chance and giving you an opportunity. We know you want a job over here with this company, but find a company that says you can come right on over here with your felony. We'll hire you. So sometimes we need to just change our trajectory on things. I think I was going in one direction. I knew what I wanted. I just wanted that. But then after a while, you have to start kind of opening yourself up for something. So thank you for that as well.
I'm gonna add something. I'm gonna add one more thing, Waleisah. And I just want to share this because I had got into a deep depression about this job stuff, right? And I was talking to a friend and I think I saw myself as something that's diminished, right? And he says, you know the difference between something that's on sale and something that's a discount. You know, I'm a shopaholic. I do. I mean, I take it all. So, you know, if it's on sale, a discount or whatever, well, discount is something that, you know, shelf life is all value. Store can't do nothing with it. So, you know how you got the discount store, you know, my grandma used to, she'd go to discount store. I'm like, Grandma, why are you shopping here? I'm like, we don't need to shop here. She want to go to the discount store to go get some bread or something, I don't know. But so the discount places, you know, can't do nothing with it in the real store. But something on sale, you know, means that you're just catching it at a good rate, but it don't mean it's lost value. He says, you can't see yourself as something that's discounted. And I started seeing myself as diminished. He said, you know, see yourself as something that, okay, they got you at a good rate, but your value, your stock is still high.
Oh, I love that.
So, and I had to start seeing that about myself and changing that about myself, you know, and not seeing myself as this discount that the store can't do nothing with anymore and it's outdated and, you know, and it's over and done. It's just, you know, they caught me at a good time, you know.
I love that. All right, then. So. Now you should have said that for the golden nugget. I like that.
Okay, well, you know, we remixed it.
All right, come on, Linnell. What was your biggest challenge post-release? Did you do your larger family therapy until you came out, right? You didn't go in already certified, right?
No, I didn't go in certified. I actually, while I was in there, figured out that's what I wanted and needed to do. So I'm glad that Nikki said that, and I'm going behind her because everything you'll figure that out about me has to do with mental health. So my biggest thing was my mental health. My biggest, barrier was myself. I'll say it that way. And I say it that way because I didn't have a problem getting a job when I got out. And I went to school. I started school the day after I got out because that's how determined I was. I had already had a plan while I was in there, mapped everything out. I called the school while I was incarcerated. I'm like, hey, I might be out on this day, but if I'm not, I'm going to call you and let you know. And the school ended up working with me. And I went to University of Phoenix because once again, at that time, it was convenient. They were working with me. So I was seeking out the people that was going to support individuals like us. And they were. So I was like, okay, that's what I'll do. So I got out I did that. I had jobs waiting for me. I worked, but it was overwhelming. And I never took time for myself. And that's the first thing I preach to people when they get out. You know, we think we have to hit the ground running and we burn ourselves out. And that's where the biggest struggle is. When we need to take time to reset, recalibrate, figure out what's going on around us. Because a lot of us, depending on how much time you've done, even if it's a little bit, you still have to readjust. You have to reset, depending on what you encountered while you were behind those walls. And so I didn't give myself time to do that. So my biggest barrier was imposter syndrome, feeling like I wasn't good enough to be in certain spaces. Like Nikki was saying, feeling like that felony was just me. Instead of it being something else, I felt like my name was Felony. I'm Felony. When I show up, they see Felony. And I couldn't let go of that. And so I just could not find myself rising to the occasion in any space. I didn't believe it was possible. When I started to shed that, that's when I was like, oh, okay, I can show up and be me. But even in school, they was telling me, oh, you in the wrong profession. You're not gonna be able to get licensed. Oh, maybe you need to change it. You're not gonna be able to work with people. But I'm also stubborn. And I tell people that all the time. You know, it was only one Martin, one Malcolm. It's only gonna be one Linnell. So I was like, okay, y'all can't tell me. I'm still gonna I'm gonna find a way. And I found a way. And those people that were hindering me became my biggest supporters and still support me to today. And I believe they were the reasons I was able to get a lot of the insight that I gained, because I would go into school crying, saying, I don't think I can do it. I'm not even gonna have a house tomorrow. And I had so much going on, but they supported me in the end and I made it. And I'm here today, but I was my biggest barrier.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And I'm so glad that you know your worth and you realize that. So I appreciate you. Thank you for your transparency. Coach Tip?
All right, ladies, I'm gonna try my best. I was having some internet connection issues. However, if it starts to go out again, I'll reconnect. But to be honest and just fully transparent, Nikki and Linnell, they have literally hit the nail on the head for me, because that's the same exact thing that I experienced once I was released. Everything about it was me being in my own way. So my mindset was at an all-time low. There was nothing you could tell me to build me up, because I was so committed to feeling and being a failure. That is the only thing that I could see. So being in that space for so long, it definitely did not help decisions I chose to make after that, but I chose to just really mask it. So I did go out and still look for employment. I did find moderate success. I'll say moderate success with other employers. I did have to go through a lot of the same things that you ladies were talking about when it comes to coming up for a job, and now you got to write a letter of explanation. They want to know everything that you have going on just because of your record or because of your background. And all of that it was humbling, but it was very challenging at the same time. And I connected with what Linnell just said. I actually teach this to a lot of my students, which is that imposter syndrome. They want to know more about it. A lot of individuals have never heard of it. And then once it's explained, that light bulb goes off. And when that light bulb goes off, you'll notice that a lot of women encounter that without even being justice impacted. We're just naturally going to tell ourselves the negative before we tell ourselves the positive. So to change that narrative is something that I work hard to do every single day. And because of that, I did seek out therapy. I just didn't seek it out until 2020, but I sought it out, and I became very much an advocate about going to therapy. And it's kind of interesting because working in that field of decreasing human sex trafficking, that it was everywhere. Therapy was always talked about. There was always access to peer counselors, but I didn't internalize it and use it for myself. So once I began my journey with therapy, like I said, 3 years ago, I also sought out a life coach in 2022. So between my therapist, my life coach, and I got some mentors. Waleisha's one of them. It all makes a difference because those people, those individuals, those women, they'll continue to pour into you. So when you have those thoughts that bubble up and that challenge that's there, no matter what you're facing in life, call on your people. Your people need to hear you. And don't be too prideful to do that, because again, no one is immune from life, and we all go through that, whether we've been just as impacted or not. So find you a good, positive, strong bubble, a good, positive, strong circle of network, sisterhood, that friendship, that family, whatever it looks like, because you are going to have those challenging days, but you got to have people that's really going to pour into you, that will keep you going. And the most important thing is pour into yourself. And that's what I do. So when those bad thoughts come up, I say, nope, you got this. You're going to do a damn good job. Excuse me for profanity, but I've known to keep it real. Probably a little my students who are on here, but you will, you will go far. And that is the biggest challenge that I've had to combat ever since being released.
So we've had employment, we've had battling imposter syndrome, and Kiki's was the financial obligations, and Coach Tip, yours was just getting out of your head.
Yes, absolutely.
All righty. And what's and last but not least, you, Shay.
For me, there were two struggles that were very difficult for me when I came home. One was all the times that I sat on my bunk and dreamed about coming home to my family. I never quite dreamed that they would change and they would not know who I was anymore. And so that was a big thing with us getting to know who we were 17 years later, and all the things that had happened in their lives, and then the things that happened in my life, and us being able to dialogue and discuss it, because they thought that I was going to be the same Shay that left, and I wasn't. I grew by leaps and bounds, and the Shay from before was a people pleaser, and the Shay now has no problem with saying no explanation given. And so that was a little bit difficult for those around me to understand. And you know, and I learned to explain with kindness, and set my boundaries and stick with them, and understand that I have to put the oxygen mask on myself first before I can save anybody else. And so that was my philosophy. The second thing that was extremely challenging when I came home, and to this day, was technology. When I went into prison, it was in 2005, and I had just purchased the new state-of-the-art blue and white Nokia phone back then. And then I come out, and the day that I got in the car to come home, my daughter hands me an iPhone, and I can't even figure out how you turn it on. And so it was extremely intimidating. It was humbling in many ways. And I just learned to ask for help. And it has nothing to do with your intelligence. What makes you intelligent is to ask for help. You're stupid if you keep pretending that you know how to do something when you don't. I mean, even to the first time that I went downtown to the Capitol to support some legislation, and I was fortunate enough to find a parking spot on the street, and I got my quarters out to go to the parking meter, and there's no slot for quarters anymore. Now you have to take a picture of your tag and upload this, and I'm standing there like, I don't know how to do this or whatever. And a homeless man, or I should say unsheltered individual, let me use the correct language.
Yeah.
He helped me. And he earned his $2 that day because I was totally lost. And what I learned was my friends were YouTube and Google. And I found on YouTube, there's a video from everything on earth, from how to bake a pie to how to change your oil in the car. And when I came home during the pandemic, I had nothing to do, but what I didn't binge watch. Well, I did binge watch Power and a few other shows that I had heard about. But for the most part, I was binge watching YouTube to learn about how to do things on the computer, and so that I would at least be able to be functional. The other thing, which I still have an issue with, is that y'all text too much and send too many emails. Just pick up the phone and call me. And so Waleisha knows this, I will call her, because it's like, I understand the convenience of a text, but I need that human touch. And so that's one of the things that a boundary that I set with my daughter and my family, is that, you know, we're not gonna, if you're in the house, don't text me. You walk into my room and say, Mama, I need such and such. Or when we're at dinner, no phones. Because so many times I go to restaurants and I see the entire family, all the way down to the little bitty babies, sitting in the high chair, and everybody has a phone and they're just clicking away. And I still think that's insane. And so I missed that progression during the 17 years I was gone. I also don't understand the point of you taking pictures of every meal that you eat either. Still don't understand
It's
that
for
one.
reviews. It's for reviews.
So there's a lot that I'm still struggling with, coming of age about, but it's never dull. And you know, I'm not afraid to ask for help, or just tell people I don't know. Some of the best conversations I've had to do with me explaining I don't know how to do something to a perfect stranger who is often very willing to help. And then when I end up telling them why, not that I have to, but I like to explain why I don't know how to do it, then they inevitably say, oh, my brother is incarcerated, my sister's incarcerated. And we end up having a meaningful conversation, and I can send them to different organizations and tell them about different initiatives that are out there that can bring us together as a community. So, you know, my stupidity at times can be educational. So, but technology was really hard. And like I said, reconnecting with the family, it is a slow process. It is a growth process, but it is 100% worth it. My daughter and I have one of the strongest and best relationships that that I think we could possibly even dream of. When I left when she was 4, but I did learn how to parent from prison. And when I've come out, I've learned to know that while she's still my daughter, she's not a child anymore. But I'm very proud of the young woman that she has become. So I respect that, and we have a great relationship. So those were my 2 areas that I struggled in.
Well, thank you so very much. And thank you for your transparency, because technology is a really big thing, especially since in the middle of COVID. You know, just people find it very challenging, even trying to get to Zoom meetings and Google Meets. And I have issues with Google Meets really bad. So yeah, definitely. Thank you all so much for being so transparent. This time is going fast. We got about 10 more minutes, and I want to get a quick question out to y'all. So I'm gonna skip one of the questions I had planned on doing. So I want to find out what's next for you. Any future goals for yourself or your business? Take about 30 seconds to let us know what's next for you. Are you planning on going back to school, or are you starting a new business, or expanding your business? Let us know what's going on for you. We'll start with Tip.
Yes, so my aspirations and what I envision for myself, one is to be a lot more present and prominent in these type of spaces. Waleisha, you know, you and I had spoke last month, and it's almost like a coming to life or coming out type of thing for me, just to be more open about my background. But what I can honestly say is what's next is tapping into that nonprofit space. Of course, right now I have a for-profit with my career coaching and consulting company, as well as our meal prep and catering. But I definitely want to tap more into the nonprofit space so I can continue to help more women. I would also like to encourage you all, as Shay just said, continue to ask questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. And being raised with very inadequate just the basic necessities in life. I had a speech impediment, I stuttered. School was very challenging for me, but I am happy to say that as of July 1st, I was just accepted into the doctoral program at Clark Atlanta University. So that's what's next. A lot of studying, a lot of writing papers, but you know what? I'm not new to it, I'm true to it, and I'm definitely built for this. Thank you, Waleisha.
Well, congrats. I've been saying I was gonna get my doctor for the long, and I think I'm tired of school. So congrats, congrats, congrats.
You can do it, Waleisha. We'll do it together.
Ooh, man. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I've actually kind of really been thinking about being a lawyer. Like, I'm serious, but I'm so old. I'm 50, so I'm gonna just leave that alone. I ain't finna speak that into existence. I'm trying to retire in about 2 years. So let's go to Nikki. What's next with you, Nikki?
No, a couple things, I want to continue to push on some initiatives of things I want to do as far as going back on the inside and doing real reentry work with women who are still in prison and doing real change, and I got some friends on the line here, and I hope that that's something that we can continue to do, and should be, hopefully that'll be happening in the next few months. You and I, we talked about doing some stuff, shaking some things up, talking about some folks, doing a little podcast, making folks mad or something.
That is the next thing. That's the next thing on my list. I said I was going to start another business, but I think with a t-shirt business and with the
I see you,
business
Katrina. Yes.
consulting business, and then with me doing the legal shit, I think I'm done with the business, but definitely the podcast is next on my list. So I got to clear some things off because my therapist, Linnell, has told me I tend to have too many, irons in the fire. So I have to clear some things off my schedule, and probably the first week of August. That is two of the things I want to get this podcast started with you. I've already talked to Whitney, one of my other co-workers who started hers, and really expand on my t-shirt business. And so those are focusing on what's making me money.
Because I'm like, now the city girls is out here talking about junk. Now, come on now. I know we can talk about some. I mean, what is going on? No. I mean,
we're gonna get it together. We're gonna get it together. We're gonna get it together.
Okay.
What's next for you, Kiki?
Thank you.
Well, S.W.I.M got a lot of things in the pipeline. So one of the main things that is next for S.W.I.M, we're trying to expand our reentry outreach, the amount of women that we're helping. Okay. You're not here in the community, figuring out how to get a bigger population to help, because right now my focus is on the women that is in my transitional house. So I'm really trying to expand my reentry outreach, working on a new house, a new transition house. We have a fundraiser coming up this fall. Our first fundraiser will be September 29th. It's going to be a wine tasting poolside event. So if you want more information, email me so that I can send you a save the date invite. And I'm also working on launching a campaign circling around lifers, because I was a lifer at one point, but I don't want to forget the people who are currently serving life sentences. So that campaign will be in the making, coming down the pipeline soon. But my main thing is to expand my outreach and open up this new home and keep everything going and putting it in motion, like my name say.
All right then. Well, thank you. I wish you the best of luck. What about you, Shay?
Well, one of my goals is to finish my book so that I can have my story out there, to get let off of probation early. So I'm trying to do everything that I need to do to be able to file that motion with my judge, so that I can truly be free and not have to be accountable to the government anymore, as far as my abilities to travel and speak freely, and to support the initiatives of all the other sisters on this call and the other ones that I'm affiliated with other organizations. I don't believe that everyone has to reinvent the wheel. I think sometimes you have to get on the bumper and push in the mud to help people get ahead. And so, I want to have my wading boots on and lift a few weights so that I can help others get to where they need to go, because I truly believe that we are stronger together. We have Atlanta, I know, has a fabulous reentry, formerly incarcerated sister network. When we need something, we rally the troops, we come together. And for the most part, we play nice in the sandbox. And I love that about us. I would like to see us do more things collectively, because I do believe that our power is within ourselves. And we don't have to keep going outside of ourselves to get things accomplished. I think we have everything that we need right here at the table. And so I think we need to look at that and stop competing with each other and start uplifting each other. And I think we will get so much further. I also would like to start speaking more on a national level. So if anyone needs a speaker for your Women's Day, this is my shameless plug. I come real cheap right now. And because it's in my heart to do it. My daughter and I, we often speak together and talk about our mother-daughter journey. That's just what I'd like to do, and just to focus a bright line on what's going on with the incarceration of women and children in this country. It's not getting better. And as we look at what the governors, our Governor Kemp and the even worse one in Florida, DeSantis, what they are trying to do, it is just awful. And we have to keep our eyes open, and we have to understand that with a felony conviction, it's you are serving a life sentence, and there should be an end to that at some point. I'm looking forward to working with Waleisah on the End of Slavery campaign, so that we can stop the exploitation of incarcerated workers, where they're placed into dangerous situations and forced to work for slave wages or no wages for corporate America to benefit. That's just wrong, and we need to stop it. So those are the things that I'm looking forward to in the next year or so with moving forward.
Well, thank
I
you
know that's
so
a
much.
lot, but I'm gonna do it all.
Well, thank you so much, Shay. Ain't nothing wrong with it. Just don't, what you say, put out too many irons in the fire, like Linnell tell me all the time. But yeah,
Just have a list, prioritize what's important and what can you get to now, and just start knocking the things off the list.
yeah.
But I guess I'm the last one, so I'm bringing up the rear. So for me, as of August 1st, I will be able to supervise up and coming therapists under me. So I am excited to now have this new venture where I'm able to really help mold up and coming therapists and really point them in the right direction on how to work with our community. In my 9 to 5, I work on a program here in Los Angeles with the mayor's office, with individuals who were looking at life or did 20 plus years that were let out. So I currently do therapy with them. And I am really looking to change that gap that's there, because a lot of people come and they say that, they don't feel heard, they're not seen. The same thing we know happens. And so I want to make sure that that is changed. Also with that, so I have a private practice, which is Healthy Self, Heal Thyself. It's a play on words, wellness services. And then I also have a consulting business because I do a lot of work in other states. So I do personal and professional development, and that is something that I am expanding as well. My consulting business is called Change Your Narrative Consulting. So every time Coach Tip said that, I was like, oh, that's me. She shot me out. She don't even know it. Look, but I really pride myself in doing trauma-informed training and harm reduction trainings, because I think it's important for people to really look at the person that they're working with and not look past them as they're working with them. So that's something that I have introduced as well. So I'm just looking to, expand and really change people's outlook on things. My slogan is same you, different approach. So I tell people I'm not trying to change who you are, because a lot of people fight with that. I'm just trying to help you look at things differently. So I really, pride myself in working with people, being relatable, being to meet them where they're at so they can get to a better place in their way of thinking. So that's what I'm trying to do within
Well,
the next
thank
6
you.
months to a year. You're welcome.
Well, thank you. Make sure you keep us updated. And like Shay said, we, going to be connecting. And actually, the beginning of this month, we had a formerly incarcerated people's dinner in Columbus, where we connected with formerly incarcerated folk in Columbus. And then on July 8th, we treated formerly incarcerated people in the Atlanta area, and we all went to Blue Cantina, had a good time. And it was just a great way to connect. It was about 25 of us, where, hey, we're all formerly incarcerated. We were able to connect and have a good time and good vibe. And so those are some other things we want to do. And I was thinking, actually was thinking maybe that's something we need to kind of do more often, but it's really hard to do because at New Life, we don't get paid to do what we're doing. We depend solely on donations. So oftentimes when people need bus passes, we only work with people who are just as impacted. So when we get people who got out of prison and don't have IDs, or need a birth certificate, a lot of times it's us reaching our own pockets to do that. So I did drop our link. No amount too small, whether it's $2 this month. We are having our fundraiser on Facebook, which is $2 for second chances. And those $2 do add up. So anything that you could give to assist us with the work that we're doing. Like I said, none of us take salaries, but a lot of times we are spending our own money to treat people out, to fellowship with people. Because sometimes folks just need to be loved on. Sometimes they're not asking for anything. They just want to connect with other formerly incarcerated people, specifically because a lot of times your POs tell you, the first thing they tell you is you can't hang out with no feelings, but when in fact, they need to be hanging out with people who are like us, who are doing great stuff, who are mentors, and you can connect them to resources. And so it'd be great if we could do this on a quarterly basis, if we were able to help more people pay for college applications, to go to school, or pay for their their IDs or their birth certificates, because you can't get a job without either. And so we depend solely on donations to get this done. And so if you're able to help us out, we appreciate that. And I think what we're going to do, since we got 2 minutes to go, we're going to squeeze it in. I want, like, for everybody as we leave, to leave us with some golden nuggets. And we were going to ask you for 3, but we ain't got time for 3. So I want to ask everybody if you can just give us one golden nugget of advice, one thing that you would tell us as we wrap this up. Give us one golden nugget of inspiration to all of us that's on this call, and those who are streaming live. What you like to give as a golden nugget, the one thing that you would like for us to leave this conversation with tonight. We'll start with Linnell, the resident therapist.
Well, I just would like to first say thank you once again for just inviting me to be in this space with all these amazing women and amazing people. I think that this is something that's definitely needed, and a lot of people are going to receive just greatness from this, and hope. But the golden nugget I would like to leave is give yourself grace. When you get out, whether it's you've done a lot of time or a little bit of time, understand that you need time, so give yourself grace in that area. Don't say, I need to have a job by this amount of time, or I need to do this, but let things fall into place. They will happen, because if you slow down and smell the roses, you'll really be able to figure out the scent. So that's my golden nugget.
Thank you so much. Nikki?
Again, thank you, Waleisah, and thank you for all the guests, the panelists. I kind of gave my golden nugget. I didn't know I was doing that earlier, so dang, I don't think I can top it. But I think we're just shepherds, and just remember that. I think what Shay was saying. This is not about us, and we just have to remember that we're doing it for a high power, a high purpose, and just to remember why we do the work. And even when it gets hard and we don't know who the man and who we're fighting, just remember sometimes it may be a bunkmate, or maybe a friend that's still behind the wall, or a family member. Just remember that we're shepherds in this work, and who we're doing it for.
And Nikki, I want you to clear that because I do plan on quoting that as a quote. Give me the quote about the discount and the sale again. I just don't want to get it wrong.
Okay, I'm gonna get to you later because I don't.
Okay, make sure you text it to me, email it something.
It was just ad lib. Okay.
Okay. All right. All right, Shay.
My nugget would be to just keep moving. Very often we get stuck, and even if it's a baby step, or if you got to take a step backwards in order to go forward, then that's what you need to do. But at all times, be in motion. That's why when I met her at her first our first event, and she was Southern Women in Motion, I said, you know what, I really like this lady right here, because when things are moving and in motion, you're going to get to your destination, because you can't get there standing still. And so that is my even if you go off the path into the ditch, into the bushes, just keep moving. You'll come back up on the other side, and you may find a shortcut, or you may have to take a U-turn and come on back, but it doesn't matter as long as you keep moving.
That's right, because God allows U-turns. Put that there. All righty, Kiki. What's your golden nugget?
Thank you, Shay, for that. Because putting things in motion is very pivotal. Waleisah, I want to thank you again for inviting S.W.I.M to be a part of this conversation. It was very important and needs to be heard. My golden nugget is pretty much just building positive relationships within this space. You know, everybody working together, like Shay said, and not against each other. We've all been down that road. And stop holding back. When you can help an organization that's up and coming, do so. You know, share your resources, and try to build positive relationships. And I just want to let you ladies know to be mindful of who you allow in your personal space. Be mindful of who you allow in your personal space. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share, and close out by saying, once again, thank you very much for allowing S.W.I.M to be a part of this conversation.
Thank you so much for sharing your space and being transparent with us and your journey. All righty, Coach Tip, you're gonna go, and then I'll close us out.
Yes, absolutely. Again, I really do appreciate this tremendous opportunity to represent myself, my story, and most importantly, to hear the stories of everyone else. The true educator in me, yeah, I definitely looked at the questions beforehand, and I wrote like 6 different golden nuggets. But since we're on a time constraint,
I tell you what, you
Waleisah,
email them, because all of these links are going to be emailed to people. If y'all have additional golden nuggets, make sure you email them, because we want to make sure that none of the nuggets don't get missed. So we're going to make sure you email them to folks. So drop y'all emails in the chat, because sometimes people don't put the emails, don't match what's on the Zoom. And I don't believe in giving people something they didn't come to get for themselves. So if you want it, drop it in the email, and we'll make sure we send it to you. But anything additional. So since you said
yes.
that, don't give us 2 of them.
I got you, Waleisah. So scratch the 6 golden nuggets I had, ladies. After listening to Shay, Linnell, Nikki, Kiki, and Waleisah, I have one golden nugget for you all, and that is freedom is not living in fear. Thank you, Waleisah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, before I give my golden nugget, and before we get ready to get out of here, I am going to give a shameless plug for the job that pays my bills, Southern Center for Human Rights. Through the Southern Center for Human Rights, I am hosting an event on this Wednesday, the 26th. So if you have an incarcerated loved one in a Georgia state prison, we will be discussing violence in Georgia prisons, prison conditions. We will also be talking about how to advocate for an incarcerated loved one, and also how to prepare a dynamic parole packet. So I am going to drop this link right here in this chat. And if you want to come to that event, please register for that event. I have one of my colleagues, an attorney from the Southern Center for Human Rights, who will be answering your questions and giving you some of those great tips on parole packets. And I guess with my golden nugget, I don't really have a golden nugget. Everything I say got a cuss word in it, but I'll keep it clean. And I'm serious. You know, a lot of times we get caught up in our own head, and I think we deal with that imposter syndrome. We only go with what people know. But I think sometimes I believe that it's just a lot of things are just not for us to know. And I think one of my favorite scriptures is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 that says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not into your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he'll make your path straight. If you basically just, whatever it is that you do, just know that sometimes he knows the plans for you, even if you don't know the plans for yourself. So that is my golden nugget that I leave with you all. And also to know that failure is not final. There's always light from outside of the darkness. And as the theme of this thing goes, that broken crayons do still color. I would like to thank you all for joining us for our last Reentry Awareness Month event of this month. And again, please share our social media pages with people if there's some events that's going on. If you've gone somewhere and you have a landlord, or you know a landlord or a housing provider that provides housing for people with criminal convictions, or an employer that will hire someone with a record, email them to us so that we can share those with the folks on our email list. If you want to be added to our email list, just email us and we'll send you the application, or you can just go to our website at www. I'm gonna put it in the chat, and go to the services page, and all you got to do is go to the services and complete the application to be added to the list. Now, I will say we only help folks who are justice impacted, not just because you just want a job. So we're very intentional about who we're helping. And again, I would just like to thank all of our guest panelists, Shay, one of our board members, Shay McFarland, Linnell Laws, Tanika Nicholas, Coach Tiffany Francis, and Shakithia Wheeler, Kiki, as well as thank those of you who are our supporters online, as well as our other board member, Andrea Atkins, who joined us today, and our community partners. And it's a good thing about it, I see nothing but women. There was a man on here earlier, but it's good to know that these women are in this space, and that's who we need to be talking to anyway. So I'm glad to see all the women on the line. And again, all these resources and chat links will be emailed to you all, so you don't have to be frantically trying to open up every window that we put in the chat or write anything down. So you all have a great night. Be safe, stay beautiful, and know that your felony or whatever it is that you're dealing with is not final, and you still have some worth, and you are very valuable, and you are amazing, and you are a boss. You all have a great night, and thank you so much. Y'all have a great one.
Thank you, Waleisah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
You.
Thank you all. This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miss Patricia. I'm trying to stop this thing.